Welcome back to the Anti-Cancer Lab. If you're new here, pull up a chair. You're in good company. This is where I read the cancer studies most people never see and tell you, plainly, what they mean for your plate. No fear, no hype. So grab a coffee and let's look at this together. Today's is cheap. It's at almost any supermarket, and it actually holds up. We're going to talk about a leafy green you've probably walked right past 100 times, and 4 of its cousins. But first, my quick note, and I mean it. I'm Dr. Becker. I'm a researcher, not your doctor, and I've never had cancer or treated a single patient. Everything I tell you here is me translating published studies for general education. None of it is medical advice, and none of it replaces your oncologist or your treatment. If you're going through something right now, bring what's useful here to the people actually caring for you, and let them lead. That's not a formality to me. That's the whole spirit of this channel. A reader wrote in last week with a question that stuck with me. She signed off as Marjorie, 68, and she said, and I'm paraphrasing only a little, Dr. Becker, I've read about kale until I'm sick of it. I've eaten so much spinach my husband calls me Popeye. Is there anything green that isn't kale or spinach that the science actually likes? Because I'm bored, and I'm not convinced the salad is doing anything. And I sat with that for a day, because honestly, Marjorie, you're asking the right question. We have all heard the kale sermon. We have all bought the bag of spinach that turned to slime in the back of the drawer. And here's my honest opinion before I show you a single study. The most interesting green in the cancer research right now is not kale and it is not spinach. It's a peppery little thing that most people think of as a garnish, if they think of it at all. It's watercress. And I'll tell you what I'd actually put on my own plate. I've been buying it on purpose for a couple of years now, ever since I went down a rabbit hole of human trials at, I'll admit it, 2 in the morning. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Here we go. Becker found a new superfood. It's just another food fad. Next month, it'll be something else. Fair. That's an honest reaction, and you should be skeptical, because most superfood stories are half a study and a lot of marketing. So let's test it. Let me show you what's actually documented, where the evidence is genuinely strong, where it's thin, and exactly how you eat the stuff without breaking the bank. 5 greens to put on your plate. We'll save the strongest for last, because the strongest one genuinely surprised me. Let me start with watercress itself, because it earns the headline. Watercress is in the same family as broccoli and cabbage, the crucifers, the ones with that slight bitter bite. When you chew it, you break the cell walls, and that triggers a little chemical reaction. There's a compound stored inside called gluconasterine, and when it breaks down, it releases something called PEITC. PEITC just stands for phenethyl isothiocyanate, and you don't need the name, you need what it does. PEITC is what scientists call a phase 2 detox enzyme inducer. And let me translate that, because that's the whole ballgame. Your liver has a cleanup crew, a set of enzymes whose job is to grab toxins and damaged molecules and tag them for the exit. PEITC seems to wake that crew up and put them to work faster. And here is why I genuinely care about watercress and not just any green. There's a line of human research out of Ohio State. Real people, not a petri dish. Looking at watercress in smokers, who carry a heavy load of DNA damage. In those studies, eating watercress was linked to a measurable drop in markers of DNA damage and a shift in how the body processed a known tobacco carcinogen. Now, let me be careful here and say that more carefully, because precision matters in this niche. These were small studies, measuring biomarkers, the chemical footprints in blood and urine. Not fewer people got cancer. Nobody followed these folks for 20 years. So what we honestly have is a real human signal that watercress nudges your body's detox machinery in a helpful direction. And that is genuinely more than we can say for most greens, where the evidence stops at the lab bench. So at the supermarket, here's exactly what to grab. Watercress comes in a little bunch or a clamshell tub, usually near the fancy lettuces, often $1 or $2. The peppery punch fades fast, so eat it within a few days. And the most important thing I can tell you, eat it raw or barely wilted. Heat destroys the very enzyme that makes the PEITC, so boiling it to death actually throws away the part you came for. Pile a handful onto a sandwich instead of lettuce, stir it into a salad, or throw it on top of a soup right before you eat it. The warmth softens it just enough without killing it. A handful, a few times a week. That's the whole prescription, and it costs you almost nothing. One more practical thing, because people ask me this all the time. Watercress doesn't keep. It's not like a head of romaine that sits for a week. So don't buy a big batch and feel guilty when it goes slimy. Buy a small tub, use it over 3 or 4 days, then buy another. And if you find a bunch on sale and want to stretch it, you can chop it and freeze it to drop into a cooked soup later. You lose the raw enzyme benefit that way, but you keep the fiber and the folate. And that's a fair trade when the alternative is throwing it out. Now that's one. Here's the next, and it's even simpler, and it makes the watercress work better. Garlic. I know, you've heard garlic is good for you your whole life, but let me give you the cancer-specific reason, because it's not the one most people quote. Garlic, when you crush it and let it sit, forms sulfur compounds, the same family of pungent molecules that make your eyes water. The reason I pair it with watercress is that both of them lean on this same phase 2 detox pathway, the liver cleanup crew I mentioned. There's a long stretch of observational research, the kind where scientists track what large groups of people eat and watch what happens over years, that links higher allium intake, that's the onion and garlic family, with lower rates of stomach and colon cancer. Now here's my honest read of that study type. Observational research can only show an association, a pattern, never proof of cause. People who eat a lot of garlic might just cook more real food in general, and it's the whole pattern of their life helping them, not the clove. So I won't oversell it. But the mechanism is real, the pattern is consistent across a lot of populations, and garlic is pennies. Here's the practical part most people get wrong. Crush or chop it, then let it sit on the cutting board for 10 minutes before it hits the heat. That rest time lets the beneficial compound form before cooking, and if you throw it straight into a hot pan, you skip that step and waste it. A clove or two a day, cooked into whatever you're already making. Sensory tip: when raw crushed garlic hits a warm pan and that sharp smell softens into something sweet, that's your kitchen telling you dinner is about to be good for you. Let me build on that, because the third one is the surprise of the bunch, and it's a green most Americans treat as a weed. Dandelion greens. Yes, the same plant from your lawn, but please, buy the cultivated ones at the store. Never harvest from a yard that's been sprayed. Now, I want to be straight with you, because this is where I have to slow you down. The dandelion cancer research is mostly lab work. Dandelion root extract, in petri dish and some animal studies, has pushed certain cancer cells toward apoptosis, which is just the body's word for a cell's natural self-destruct. The off switch that broken cells are supposed to flip and cancer cells refuse to. That's a real finding in a dish. It is not a finding in a person. I have not seen the human trial that would let me promise you anything, and I won't pretend otherwise. So why is it even on the list? Because, as a leafy green to eat, dandelion greens are one of the most nutrient-dense things in the produce aisle, loaded with the kind of fiber and plant compounds that feed your gut bacteria. And a healthy gut is one of your real, well-documented defenses. Wait, let me back up and be fair. I'm putting dandelion greens on your plate for the everyday nutrition and the gut benefit, which are solid, and treating the petri dish cancer stuff as interesting but unproven. That's the honest split. At the store they look like a long, toothy, dark green leaf, often just called dandelion greens, $1 or so a bunch. They're bitter, so the cheap trick is to sauté them with that garlic we just talked about and a squeeze of lemon. The bitterness mellows right out. Or chop a few young leaves into a salad with milder lettuce so the bite doesn't ambush you. Which brings me to the fourth, the one most people skip, and it might be the best kept secret in the produce aisle, purslane. You'll hardly ever see it labeled in an American supermarket, but you'll find it at farmers markets, Mexican groceries where it's called verdolagas, and Middle Eastern shops. It's a low, sprawling plant with little paddle-shaped leaves, and it tastes faintly lemony and a bit succulent, almost juicy. Here's why I went looking for it. Purslane is the richest plant source of omega-3 fats we know of, the same family of anti-inflammatory fats people take fish oil for. And chronic inflammation, the low, smoldering kind, is one of the conditions cancer cells love to grow in. Purslane also carries glutathione and other antioxidant compounds, glutathione being one of your body's own master cleanup molecules. Now the honest caveat, same as before, This is largely nutritional science and lab work, not a trial showing purslane lowers anybody's cancer risk. I'm putting it on your plate because it's a genuinely anti-inflammatory green that almost nobody eats, and variety on your plate is itself protective. But I'm not going to dress it up as more than that. How to eat it? Raw is best to keep those delicate omega-3 fats intact. So toss the leaves into a salad or stir them into yogurt with a little salt the way it's eaten across the Mediterranean and the Middle East. If you can't find purslane, don't lose sleep. It's a bonus, not a backbone. The first time I tried it, I expected nothing, and that cool lemony crunch genuinely surprised me. It eats more like a little garden vegetable than a leaf, and now I grab it whenever I spot it. And before the strongest one, let me give you a fifth that's far easier to find than purslane, and it belongs in the same powerful family as watercress. Mustard greens. These are everywhere, especially in the south, often sold right next to collards and turnip greens, and they're cheap, often under $2 for a big bunch. Mustard greens are cruciferous too, cousins of broccoli and watercress, and they carry their own isothiocyanates, that same class of detox-triggering compounds we talked about with the PEITC in watercress. When you chew them raw or chop them, you set off that same enzyme reaction that creates the protective compound. They've got a sharp, almost horseradish bite when raw that mellows when you cook them. Here's my honest framing, because I want to keep being fair with you. The strong human trial evidence I keep pointing to lives with watercress specifically, not mustard greens. So I'm not going to claim mustard greens have their own pile of clinical studies. They don't. What they have is membership in the right family, a real detox compound profile, a ton of folate and fiber, and a price that means a senior on a fixed income can actually buy them every week. That accessibility matters more than people admit. Practical use. If you want the most of the protective compound, chop or chew some raw into a salad or slaw. If raw is too sharp for you, the southern way works fine. Simmer them low with a little onion, and yes, some of the most heat-sensitive compounds fade, but you still get the fiber, the folate, and a vegetable on the plate instead of nothing. Done is better than perfect. A big bunch cooks down to a couple of servings for almost no money. And now the strongest one for last. And I'm circling all the way back to where we started, because the surprise is that the leafy green with the deepest human evidence is the one I opened with. Watercress, again, but this time the part that generally changed how I think about it. Beyond the smoker studies, there's laboratory work on PEITC, that compound watercress releases, showing it can interfere with the way cancer cells protect themselves, and some early signals around how tumors recruit a blood supply, a process called angiogenesis, which is just a tumor growing its own plumbing to feed itself. The phrase you'll see in headlines is that watercress starves cancer cells. Let me ground that honestly, because that's a lab phrase, not a promise. In cell and animal studies, PEITC has been shown to choke off some of those survival and blood supply signals. That's the starve in the headline, and it's real science. But it lives in dishes and mice, not in a clinic. What lifts watercress above every other green on this list is that we don't only have the dish, we also have those human biomarker studies showing real bodies responding. That combination, a plausible lab mechanism plus a measured human signal, is rare for a vegetable, and it's exactly why this peppery little garnish is the one I'd build a habit around. I sat with a fellow last winter, call him Stan, a retired postal carrier rattled by a brother's diagnosis, and he kept asking me for the one thing, the magic green. And I told him what I'll tell you. There isn't a magic green. But if you made me pick the green with the most real evidence behind it, it's the cheap bunch of watercress almost nobody buys. He started keeping a tub in the fridge, putting it on his egg sandwich every morning. Not because it'll save him, because it's a good, doable bet, and it tastes alive. And I'll tell you the part that stayed with me. A month later, he wrote back and said the real change wasn't the watercress. It was that he'd stopped feeling helpless. He had one small thing he could do, every morning, with his own 2 hands, and that took the edge off the dread. I think about that a lot, because that's really what this channel is for. Not the magic green, the lever you can actually pull. And before I get straight with you, let me give you one bonus, because it's the most concentrated source of this whole family of compounds, and almost nobody over 60 knows about it. Broccoli sprouts. Not broccoli, the sprouts, the little 3-day-old seedlings. Here's the surprise. Those tiny sprouts contain dramatically more of a compound called sulforaphane, a cousin of the watercress compound, than a full head of grown broccoli does. Sometimes 10, 20, even 50 times more, gram for gram. Sulforaphane is one of the most studied plant compounds in all of cancer research, and watercress and broccoli sprouts both belong to that same cruciferous detox family we've been talking about all video. And there's real human work here too, not just dishes. Trials, including ones out of Johns Hopkins, have given people broccoli sprout preparations and measured their bodies clearing out airborne pollutants and toxins faster. Again, that's a biomarker, a footprint, not a survival study, and I'll always tell you that. But it's a real human signal on a compound with deep cancer research roots. Now here's the part I love, because it's the most practical thing in this whole video. You can grow broccoli sprouts yourself, on your kitchen counter, for pennies, in about 4 days. A jar, a spoonful of broccoli seeds, a little water rinsed twice a day, and you've got a fresh harvest of the most sulforaphane-dense food there is, for less than the cost of a single sad bag of pre-washed salad. If growing them feels like a fuss, most health food stores and a lot of regular supermarkets now sell them in a little tub in the produce section. Eat them raw, a small handful on a sandwich or a salad, right alongside that watercress, because heat wrecks the enzyme here just like it does with watercress. Same family, same rule. Raw is the move. And let me be straight with you. The way I'd want someone to be straight with me. None of this is a cure. Not the watercress, not any of it. A food doesn't kill cancer in your body the way a headline says it does. What these greens do, at best, is shift the odds a little, over years, by supporting the systems your body already uses to clean up damage and tamp down inflammation. That's it. That's the honest version. Anyone who tells you a salad will shrink a tumor or that you can skip your treatment and eat your way out of this is selling you something, and it's something that could cost you your life. Here's the part the headlines leave out too. The watercress smoker studies were small and measured chemical markers, not survival. The dandelion, purslane, and mustard green cancer claims are mostly petri dish and theory. I'm not hiding that from you, because the day I start hiding the limits is the day I become exactly the kind of channel you should close. This is about being the safe, steady driver who wears the seatbelt every single time, not buying a lottery ticket and calling it a plan. And Marjorie, since you got us started, here's my real answer to your question. No, the salad isn't a magic shield, and you were right to be a little suspicious of it. But the answer to boredom on the plate isn't to give up, it's to widen the plate. Watercress instead of more spinach. A handful of mustard greens you've never tried. That variety is doing quiet work, and it tastes a whole lot better than another bowl of the same wilted leaf. So here's your one thing this week, and it's small and it's cheap. On your next shop, buy one bunch or one tub of watercress. That's it, $1 or $2. When you get home, swap it in for the lettuce on a sandwich or drop a handful onto your soup right at the table. Raw or barely warmed, so you keep the good compound alive. Do that 3 times this week. You don't have to love it, you don't have to overhaul your whole diet, you don't have to throw out the spinach you already own. One green you'd never have tried, 3 times, on a sandwich. That's the entire assignment. If you want a bonus, let your chopped garlic rest 10 minutes before it hits the pan tonight. 2 changes, both free or nearly, both backed by something real. Because here's what I want you to carry out of this. You hold one lever every single day, 3 times a day, and that's your plate. You can't control your genes, you can't control everything that's already happened, and I'd never tell you that you can. But you can control whether there's a peppery green bunch in your fridge this week instead of a wilted bug you forgot about. That's not nothing. That's the safe driver doing the doable thing, over and over, quietly, for years. Use that lever, bring it to your oncologist and the people caring for you, and let them do the rest. Your last decades can be good ones, and the plate is where you start. Keep it simple, keep it on your plate, and I'll see you right back here. Bring a friend who needs this, and tell me in the comments which one you're starting with this week. Watercress, garlic, dandelion, purslane, or mustard greens. I read every one of these.